Hey friends, welcome to the Stillwater's Wreath Designs channel. Let's dive into creating. We're going to be building our spring summer floral wreath on an 18-inch oval grapevine. This actually came from Hobby Lobby, and you can buy these in multiple sizes, friends. This particular grapevine is actually 16 inches in width and 18 inches in length. I've already cut off the tag and used my smaller snips to clean up the grapevine and trim off any scraggly pieces. And this wreath, friends, is basically going to be primarily a floral wreath with, of course, a super cute bougie bow. Some of the tools you're going to need will be your small work snips, possibly your large work snips, and of course a good glue gun, hot glue gun, and some glue. How is everyone today? We're going to start by adding a couple of FICA branches to our wreath base here. FICA's a really good floral to add into your wreath. It gives it lots of dark green filler, and it's pretty lengthy. This is probably every bit of 24 inches in length. It's pretty thin, so it doesn't add a lot of thickness to your wreath, but boy does it give it lots of character. And of course this is on a wire spine, so you can bend these as you would like. While you're cleaning up and trimming up your grapevine wreath, friends, make sure you get your hot glue gun plugged in. And right now I'm just separating these leaves a little bit. Just giving them a little bit of a spread. I'm actually going to curve this at an angle just a little bit. And make sure you touch and handle all of your branches. Bring them to life, friends, whether you pick them up in the store or online. When you bring them home, they're going to be flat. Not much personality to them. So it's our job to give them some sparkle. So I've got this fluffed out and given it some depth. Now I'm going to take my Work Pros here and trim off the end. We don't need our stem to be quite that long. So we'll just cut that off, toss that away. And we're going to actually run these on the side, friends. So my vision for this grapevine floral wreath, it's going to have about a third, maybe a little bit more than a third of open space here on the right hand side, and then the rest will fill in with lots of different greenery and florals. There's going to be some butterfly theme going on here today, and then of course a bougie bow in the middle. So we're going to start by laying our ficas, one branch on the top and one on the bottom. So while my glue gun continues to heat up, I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the stem of my second FICA and give this guy some character too. Uh-oh, we've had a casualty. This will be going the opposite direction. It'll be laying here. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a bend to follow the curve of our wreath. And I'm just going to make sure I touch all of these branches and bring them to life a little bit. Give them a little bit of revival from their time on in the box. All right. This may be a little bit out of focus, friends. We'll probably have to build this from side to side so you can truly see it. I'm going to see if I can find where this guy fell off. We'll just give him a drop of hot glue and get him right back in place. Looks like right there. So when your little bits fall off, friends, just put a drop of hot glue into that end, and then you can just poke it right back to where it came from. And within a couple of minutes, it'll be nice and dry for you so that it's back in place where you want it to be. There we go. Fixed and ready. I'm going to do this side to side so you can really see what I'm doing. Need a little bit bigger workstation for this project here, guys. So I'm just going to put my ficus branch in where I'd like it to be. And then I'm going to use my second ficus branch and get it loaded into our wreath as well. And remember, these guys are bendable, so you are in control of where they go and what they do. So bend them to your liking. And once you have them both in place, take your glue gun and really squeeze a generous amount of glue on both of them so they get a nice stick. I know that looks kind of clunky, but don't worry, we'll soon have this beauty full. Let me show you some of the other bushes we'll be using, friends. I've got one wildflower bush that's got fern bits and lavender, some dark purple, a little bit of hot bead pip berries, some white, different textures and lengths. Super cute. I grabbed a leftover bush from a previous project. It's actually got some sunflowers on it and some variegated greenery and some dried bits as well that we may or may not use. And then I have this stunning butterfly pick. I've only got one of these, so we're going to have to make it count with this guy, but I just love this. This will definitely be our statement piece, and we'll get that added in shortly. So again, friends, whenever you're working with your floral stem, it doesn't matter if it's a greenery or if it's a flower, if it's extra large or extra small, no matter where you get it from, you always need to fluff it out, kind of like you do your bows. And so what I mean by fluff, friends, is you really want to get your hands on every bit of floral and greenery within your bush. So if you're new to working with florals, this entire piece is called a bush, and then every piece that shoots out here is called a stem. So you really want to just bring that guy to life. Spread it out, give it some personality, wake it up from its time being on the store shelf or in an Amazon box or wherever it came from. Really wake this fella up. And so I'm just making sure I touch every single stem within this bush. I'm pulling them apart gently. They sometimes tangle. And we're just breathing some life into this guy. And so as you take a look at it, you want to make sure that, you know, your colors are spread out. You don't want all of your yellow on one side or purple or whatever you're working with. You want to make sure that everything gets seen and touched and exposed, so you've really got that beautiful structure. And because I only have one of these, friends, I'm actually going to split this guy in half. So the first thing I want to do is give this stem a trim. We don't need it that long, so I'm going to cut off a couple of inches to make it more workable. And I literally, friends, just tore that right in half. You might need to use scissors if you don't have a bush that's wrapped in floral paper. And that way I can have one pointing up and one pointing down. Remember, we're going to put a bow in this center section. And so what I'm going to do is actually poke them into my wreath here. Making sure that everybody's in a place where they can shine. There we go. And I put the smaller of the two florals towards the bottom because I know that we're going to have a bow with some tails hanging down that will give that some extra filler. We want to give that time to shine. So I've got both pieces in place. I'm grabbing 2 zip ties, friends. These are probably 10 to 12 inches in length. And I'm going to use these to secure our floral a little bit. So I'm running this through the grapevine, back up through the grapevine. That really gives it a good disguise. Our customers don't much care to see the mechanics of what we're doing here. Then I'm going to just cinch that guy down. Trim off my excess bit here. And then I'll do the same thing for this lower piece. You could also use floral wire if you prefer. Totally up to you. So I'm running that just below where the florals start. Cinch that guy down tight. It's just an extra bit of stability for your wreath. I'm going to follow up with some hot glue. And just right where that bush meets the grapevine wreath, give it 3 or 4 good squirts of glue. And just a little bit of time to dry. You don't want to touch it for a good few minutes, friends, or you're going to get a zingy burn. Avoiding the area where you added the glue. You can definitely start to spread and give that final fluff here to your florals. They're nice and attached. Just remember not to touch that glue. That'll wake you right up. This is going to be such a cute, springy, summery floral wreath with lots of personality. And I'm just kind of bending my stems up to give them a little bit of height and making sure all these pretty colors in this bush are getting their elevation to really shine. Cute, cute, cute. Pull some of those fica out too from the back and give them a little bit of a spread. I'm going to take my snips again. I've got a leftover bush of mini sunflowers, some good greenery, and some dried florals as well, and just trim those off, leaving about 3 inches of a stem. We'll probably have to go back in and trim those up once we know where we want them. But for now, we'll leave those stems long. We can always trim more off, but we can't put it back on. Friends, if you enjoy wreath making, all things wreath making, and like some creative inspiration and a fun, creative wreath making community, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I upload new videos every week, nearly always 2 or 3 videos a week. And sometimes do some giveaways. We just have a lot of fun. All right. So we've trimmed off the sunflowers here in these dried bits. I'm not sure how many we'll use. We're just going to play around for a minute. And so what I'm going to do at this point, friends, give me just a minute to do some dry placement throughout our wreath. I'm going to zoom through this part and let you watch me real quickly while we add these in. I've got all of those flowers glued in and in place, and that glue is drying, friends. So now we're going to move on to this beautiful butterfly floral pick. I absolutely love, love, love this pick. And I actually received it, ironically, from a mystery box that I had ordered from the Fancy Front Door, and was so happy to see this guy once it came in. So just like our other florals, friends, we've touched every stem on here and brought them to life, woken it up from its time in the box, and we'll probably fluff it again once we get it in place. I'm going to go ahead and trim off, gosh, a good bit of the stem, every bit of 6 inches. We certainly don't need that. And now we'll see where we'd like to place this guy. I think that is the perfect spot for those whirly twirly butterflies. Once we get the bow on, we'll give it a final fluff here. So what I've done, I've actually shoved it into a tight spot in the grapevine weave. I'll lift those flowers up now and of course give it some glue to make sure this fella doesn't go anywhere. And while that's drying, friends, we can work on our bow. Let me show you the ribbon I ended up choosing for our wreath, friends. If you're not new to my channel, you know that I typically, nearly always, like to pair a 1.5 inch ribbon with a 2.5 inch ribbon. However, I really want this bow to be an accent piece for our wreath and not necessarily the focal point. So because of that, I'm going to just use 2 1.5 inch wired ribbons, and I'm going to just zoom through this bow making process pretty quickly, friends. If you need extra support with your bow making, I'll actually link a couple of step-by-step hand bow tutorials for you in the description of this video, so you'll have that to reference if you need it. But in the meantime, just take a look at how perfect this ribbon is going to be for our bow. It's neutral with the burlap. It's got some beautiful white pops of flowers and lots of cute yellow and orange butterflies. That's really going to complement our wreath well. So I'm going to make our accent bow, and I'll meet you right back here in just a second. All right, friends, I've just made my bow, and I don't typically fluff out my bows until after I have them added into my wreath so that I know exactly where I want my loops and tails to go. But as you can see, I've got myself an 8 loop bow with one little button in the middle. And I'm just going to grab a heavy floral wire stem. You can actually buy these pre-cut in large quantities for a very reasonable price from Hobby Lobby. I'm sure you could do so online as well. I'm going to fold that guy loosely in half just to find the center point. There, we've got our V there. And now I'm going to run that right over the middle of my bow stack, making sure my tails are going in the right direction. I'm going to give that a couple of twists just to hold it in place. It's not actually going to be holding our bow together. We've used a chenille stem for that, but we certainly can use this to attach it to our wreath discreetly. So I'm just going to bring my wreath back in. Hopefully this is within camera shot, friends. I know this big beauty might be a little tricky. And I'm going to run that through the grapevine on both sides to help hide that wire. And I want that bow to be a little on the higher up side so that those tails have room to hang down a little bit and not cover all of our flowers. We've added a lot of glue with our floral, so give yourself some patience while you find a spot to add this guy in. You just need one little gap. Run your wire then all the way through. And then you'll flip that over, cinch it up a couple of times pretty tightly. A good 3 or 4 times. And then take your snips, trim off those loose ends, and you can save those if you want to or discard them. Go ahead and grab your needle nose pliers to pinch those ends together and really kind of give that one more tight twist. And then you'll want to make sure that those loose ends are poking back into your wreath so that they don't poke you or your customer or your door. And then take your glue gun and just run a little bit of glue right where that wire meets your grapevine wreath and give it a little bit of time to dry. You can tell when your glue is dry, it gets an opaque, milky look as opposed to clear. So we'll give it a couple of minutes to dry and then we'll flip it over and fluff it out. Once you've added your bow in, friends, and you've given that glue time to dry, it's time to fluff out your bows and trim up your tails. First thing I do is just get all my tails going basically in the right direction. And then I fluff out my loops, starting at the bottom and working my way towards the top. All right, friends, I've got my tails kind of running with a little bit of a part in the middle because I really don't want to cover our wildflowers any more than we need to. And I'm just taking my fingers and pulling the tails up and over. That gives them some curvature because they're wired ribbon tails. They'll go in the direction you want them to go. And then I'm going to trim my tails here. I always recommend cutting them gingerly. You can always take more off, but you can't put it back on. It's my personal preference to cut the lengths at a little bit of a varying length, just because I like lots of texture and depth. I feel like it gives it some sass, but that's just my personal preference. You can certainly trim those however you'd like. I'm cutting my ends at an angle. I'm sure a dovetail would be equally cute, possibly cuter. How cute. This ribbon is just adorable, friends. And now that I've added that in, I think I'm going to go ahead and grab a small bush of orange florals and just put a couple of orange sprinkled here and there throughout our wreath to really tie together with this bow. I found a dainty mini rose bush. I'm just going to cut off a couple and we'll see how that looks. And then we'll see if we need to add any more. Just like before, even though it's a small one, we're still going to touch every branch and just wake it up a little bit from its time hanging out down here. And I'm going to dry place those in and glue them down. What a stunning butterfly floral wreath we've made, friends. Let's go hang it on the door. This turned out so beautifully, friends. Thank you for spending some time and crafting with me today. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up to help my little channel grow, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks, friends. Happy crafting.